Hi everybody, good to see you again. We are here in Heather and Jessica's classroom yard looking at their little water feature. This little pond here that's planted with some lilies, and if you look very closely you can see there's tadpoles swimming around. Do you see them? So it worked. We made a pond and the frogs came and laid their eggs, and that's a good sign. That means that the water's clean. Frogs are amphibians, and you guys know that amphibians have kind of like slimy skin, and they can actually breathe through their skin, which is really cool. But that also means that if the water's polluted, ooh, did you hear that? That was a frog. If the water's polluted, they'll absorb that pollution through their skin. So they are what we call an indicator species. If the frogs disappear, we know we're in trouble. That means we need to figure out what's going on before we disappear. So this is a good sign that we have all these little tadpoles here in the pond. It's evening, so I was hoping to catch some of the croaking of all the different frogs that live on and around our campus. The theme of this garden is, I like to call the water garden because it has the pond, it also has a rain garden, but really it's kind of the everything garden, because when this was Miss Kathy and Miss Martha's classroom yard, they planted a little bit of everything. So we have a miniature pollinator garden here with lots of flowers to attract butterflies and hummingbirds. So let's test your knowledge if you remember from the last video. Does anyone know what this flower is? Compound flowers on an umbel. It is a native lantana. This is Stokesia, or Stokes aster. Not blooming yet, but forming buds. Mounds, salvia, or Mexican sage. And of course, my favorite, the milkweed. There have been monarchs alighting on this plant and laying their eggs, so we expect to see caterpillars soon. So there's a lot of different things going on in this garden. We've been working on it a lot, so if you remember, it was really huge and it was confusing because you had to make paths. You had to walk through the middle, and people were walking all over the plants. So we rebuilt everything, and we made paths that are outside of the beds, so we should never have to go inside the beds anymore. We can just follow the paths and walk around them. The beds have also been made narrower so that we can reach everything without having to get in them. So we did some design tweaks, and I'm pretty happy with what we ended up with. This is called Candy Tuft. We planted this 2.5 years ago with Miss Martha and Kathy's class, and it has just been reseeding itself year after year. Does anybody recognize this plant? Sunflower. Lots and lots of sunflowers there will be. They're getting taller and taller. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this big, beautiful collard right here. And I just want to tell y'all that Miss Lindsay knew it was a collard, and she told me, that she had harvested some collard leaves. What you would do is you would leave the center intact, and you would just harvest these leaves down at the bottom, nice and healthy and green. Take as many as you can eat off of the stalk, and then let the center keep growing and growing so you can get more and more. I didn't believe Miss Lindsay when she said it was a collard, because I thought it was a broccoli, because that's what I had planted. I had planted broccoli. So it just goes to show that your mind, when it's expecting something, can make itself believe what it wants. Now, this is what happens after the collard goes to flower. First it goes to flower. There's the beautiful yellow flowers that the pollinators love. Now, after the flower gets pollinated, then what is it able to do? Who remembers? Then it can make seed. So here we have the seed pods. So these will be let to mature, and then we can collect them and plant more collards if we want, or we can let them plant themselves, which is what they did. These collards were from seeds of the collards that Miss Kathy and Miss Martha planted 3 years ago, and my broccoli seeds just never sprouted, I guess. Now you may be asking me, I thought you were the gardening teacher. How come you can't tell the difference between collards and broccoli? Well, they're very similar. They're both in the brassica family, which is basically like the broccoli family. Broccoli, cabbage, collards, they're all extremely similar. And cauliflower is also in that family. So, there's so many plants in the world. It would be impossible for anyone to remember them all, but what you can start to notice are similarities, and you can start to learn families. So these may be broccoli, they may be collards, I can't tell yet. Or it could be a combination, or some cabbage mixed in, because we've had all of that in this garden. So since I let them see, we have the seeds of all of that. And look here is a baby okra. So the collards and the cabbage and the broccoli are winter crops, so they're gonna not be so happy once it starts to heat up and become summer. So I've planted some summer crops like okra that will take over when the broccoli and the collards start to get ugly. The cabbage worms will come and eat them and turn into butterflies, but we'll let them, and then we'll just wait till next winter when some of these brassicas will survive and bring us winter crops for next year. That's not how most people do it. Most farmers rip it out and start over every time so that you can have a young, fresh broccoli every time you go to the store. But if our broccoli wants to live for 2 years, I'm gonna let it grow for 2 years. Does anyone know what this plant is? This is dill. Now, if you look at the flower, does it remind you of the lantana with the compound flowers? Do you remember what we called it when a flower looks like an umbrella? It's called an umbel. So this is pretty amazing. You've got these tiny, little teeny umbels, right? So you have like a miniature umbel, and then you have the miniature umbel made of a bunch of tiny flowers, and then that umbel is just a tiny umbel within a giant umbel. So it's like a giant umbrella made of a bunch of little umbrellas. Very cool. Now, you may notice that this looks very similar to fennel. It has similar leaves and similar flowers. It's in the same family. It's in the parsley family. And swallowtail butterflies, The black swallowtails can eat the dill, the fennel, or the parsley. They can eat anything in that family. But that's it. So you got to make sure you've planted something for them. We have some late blooming daffodils, more okra, and these are our chives. They'll probably be bigger by next winter. They're a winter flower too. Okay, so this is a big garden. Let's do a little walkthrough. We have daylilies in full bloom. When these are done blooming, there's buds waiting to replace them. Lots of daylilies. I put them in the drip line because they love water, like all lilies love water. This is called alyssum. Smells really good when you touch it. Does anyone recognize this plant? Remember from the last time, 3 leaves, serrated edges. There's a flower. What will that flower turn into? A fruit. A fruit with seeds. This is a strawberry plant, but all the strawberries have been picked for the moment. We have some canna lilies, some elephant ears, you can tell why they're called that, some obedient plant. Let's go down the path. We have a native crabapple tree. Birds really love that. Here we have a red bud tree and broccoli that went rogue over there. Another crabapple, a golden fringe tree. Lots of them, lots of flowers. We have some hummingbirds that like to visit these big blue pots on your deck. They like the milkweed here. And you see what this is? This is a pod. This is the seed pod. So valuable milkweed seeds in those. We have a red maple tree. The beehive is doing well. The bees are busy as usual. They are enjoying the nectar, and they are taking care of all the things they need to take care of. And over here we have the rain garden. So the rain garden is basically a garden that's made out of plants that don't mind if they occasionally end up in standing water. So this spot was chose because when it rains, it doesn't have very good drainage, and sometimes there's just a big puddle here. So all these plants are native, and they don't mind being in standing water, but they're also very hardy, and if it's dry, they survive pretty well too. This is called Swamp Rattlesnake Master. You'll see in the fall why it gets that name. It won't have its flower till then. But from its name, you see it has swamp in the name, so it was chosen well for this site. The irises are about finished, but irises are also known for liking to be around water. We have our aquatic milkweed. It has the word aquatic in the name, which means water. So it's in the rain garden too. This is a native milkweed. It's much more delicate than the tropical milkweed. Has a beautiful white flower. And here we have obedient plant, very happy in the rain garden, just vibrant and lush. Now this plant here is the stalks from last season, which I left to remind us that we will be expecting a plant to come back in the spring, since this plant is deciduous, which means it dies totally back in the winter and disappears, but it's not dead. And then in the spring it sends up leaves like this. You might recognize this from the turtle enclosure. This is called marshmallow. It's a type of native hibiscus, and it will have some beautiful flowers. We'll have to do a second video when the things bloom. But you may think that name is familiar. This is the plant that originally marshmallows were made out of. It's a type of mallow that grows in the marsh, and its root is used to make the original marshmallows, natural marshmallows. They don't use that usually anymore in the ones that you go to the grocery store, but the flavor is designed after our marshmallow. So we have some baby milkweeds that I have planted here, and I'm hoping that by the time you come back they will be big and strong and will have attracted lots and lots of monarch butterflies. So I just want to tell you, the grapevine is very happy. The birds are very happy. They have been using the birdhouses. They've been raising families. They've been very busy. Here we have a black tupelo. This tree can grow in swamps, and sometimes we'll get a big fat trunk at the bottom. Not yet, but someday our little baby tupelo will be big. Some people call it the swamp tupelo. It's known for making honey taste delicious when the bees feed on its flowers. This is Confederate jasmine. Everybody loves the way jasmine smells. You're probably at home smelling it now. It's all over all the neighborhoods. So if you're wondering what that smell is, it's probably jasmine. Look at that, the grapes. So these are not native grapes. We do have native grapes. We have muscadine grapes. But these are more like the typical, grocery store grapes you might grow in California. We don't have the greatest conditions for growing grapes. Typically, they're more like of a Mediterranean type plant, but they seem to be happy here. And here we have a passion flower that's bloomed. So you can see how it got its name. It is just an amazing flower. And if you look at the leaf, you may recognize the leaf from the other videos. This one is a different species. It's not the native, but it's in the same family, right? So the leaf is very similar and the flower is very similar. Lots and lots of grapes. Don't know if I will be able to get them before the birds do. But if you were in you heard that was a frog croaking. If you were in Miss Kathy's class, you might remember planting this grapevine several years ago, and it has definitely grown. Let's be quiet and see if we can get the frog to croak again. I don't know where he is. He's close by. Well, I sure have enjoyed hanging out with you and the frogs, and send me some pictures of your garden and what's going on in your neck of the woods, and I hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye.